There are many ways of organizing, but today we're going to focus on direct action organizing. All the techniques that are discussed in this and future videos will be about direct action organizing. However, we're going to also cover the other types of organizing. People are always out there doing what they need to do to get what they want, and we can arrange these different efforts, these different forms of community organizing, on a rough line, a spectrum. Over on this end, we have things which accept society as it is, with all of its existing power relationships, and over on this other side, we have things that challenge them. Direct action organizing defines this end of the line, and what exactly it means will make much more sense once we fill out the rest with some examples. Don't worry, there are only 4 other types, so it won't take long. Let's start at the opposite end of the spectrum, and we'll use an example to discuss each of these that pretty much every community deals with. Lots of people don't have affordable housing or are homeless. This end of the spectrum is defined as direct service organizing. The powerful will still be powerful, the rules are still the rules, society's power relationships remain largely unchanged. With our housing example, a direct service organization would be one that maybe operates a shelter for homeless people, a housing authority that builds subsidized housing, caseworkers that make referrals and assist people in applying for welfare. Their service is done by staff and for clients, all within existing frameworks. Next, we have self-help organizing. It's basically the same thing as direct service organizing, but the people who need housing get together to do what the staff would be doing in direct service organizing. These challenge existing power relationships, obviously, because it's the people doing things for themselves, but just like direct service organizing, it's quite limited in scope. Not to say that this is a bad thing or that the work that these types of organizations do isn't vitally important for many people, but they really only help the people who are actually involved in the process and not anyone outside of it. And that's often their point. Right in the middle of the road, we have something that isn't really organizing, but can kind of be thought of as it. We have education. An educating organization may publish reports on the causes of unaffordable housing. It might provide guides on how to read leases and what your rights are as a tenant. They may even do studies on possible solutions from other communities, or entirely novel ones. For example, the People's Policy Project has a report that they've issued analyzing the housing crisis in the United States and proposing a quite robust series of policies that they think will solve it. The organizing that they did was in preparing the report and talking with people and analyzing data and so on. But again, it's not truly organizing. It does, however, challenge existing power structures most of the time. The next step over on our scale is a type of organizing that does challenge existing power relationships. It's called advocacy. An advocacy organization might attend city council meetings and speak at length about the need for affordable housing. Often, the people who need affordable housing won't even know that the organization is doing this. Advocacy organizations don't require a large base of support. That's often why they're the only types of organizing that the unpopular, rich, and powerful can use. And now, you'll probably be able to guess what direct action organizing is. Some of the people who need affordable housing organize themselves and win improvements for everyone. They agree to the solution that meets their own needs after meeting with their members and then take the actions to solve it. They might be the ones who go to the city council and demand rent control, or limits on luxury construction, a tax break for renters, new construction of public housing projects, or countless other things. Such as maybe going on a rent strike. It's happened countless times in US history, where a tenants union decides to withhold their rent payments until their demands are met. The news usually doesn't like reporting on rent strikes, lest the populace get ideas. But that often works in the strikers' favor. The news usually likes to handle strikes by reporting on how ungrateful the unwashed masses are for demanding livable conditions and happiness in their lives. Some major housing projects in the US are actually built by unions who spent pension fund money to solve housing shortages, not just for their members, but for the communities that they lived in. The most notable example of this is Co-op City in the Bronx. It's the largest housing cooperative in the world, quite surprising since it's in the United States. The project was sponsored by United Housing Foundation, an organization that was established by the Amalgamated Clothing Workers of America. The project had its problems for sure, but the results sort of speak for themselves. There are 44,000 people being housed in the project. Some developments were the result of cooperative banking schemes, where at the start, a small group of people who wanted to own homes pooled their money into one large pot and became a nonprofit entity capable of issuing low to zero interest mortgages. Direct action organizers may demand local governments give them financial support for these projects. Some direct action organizations may try and make it inconvenient for the problem that they care about to be ignored by those in power. They might occupy government offices with sit-ins. They may hold protests outside constantly to annoy the people in office. They might carry out coordinated acts of civil disobedience, as has happened many times. They might threaten to split the vote in an upcoming election and cast their ballots for a third party if their demands aren't met by the incumbent. There are countless tactics that we'll cover in later videos. But I think right now it's time to share a quote. This time it's a fun story from the days of Occupy Wall Street. Occupy was seen by many of its early members as an extension of a global movement that started with the Arab Spring in the Middle East and the mass uprisings in Spain and Greece. All of these were unified by people demanding more democracy in their societies, an end to political corruption, and things of that nature. This is a quote from Ahmed Mar, who was involved in the Egyptian branch of this international movement. "We made a lot of use of cab drivers, without their knowledge. You see, there is a tradition we have in Egypt. Cab drivers must talk. Continually. They cannot do otherwise. So, one day, when we knew the police were going to break up our assembly, we announced on our Facebook pages that we would all be meeting at Tahrir Square at 3 p.m. Now, of course, we all knew that we were being monitored. So, that day, each of us made a point of taking a taxi around 9 a.m. and telling the driver, 'You know, I hear there's going to be a big assembly at Tahrir Square at 2 this afternoon.' And sure enough, within hours, everyone in Cairo knew about it. We got a turnout of tens of thousands of people before the police showed up." We'll get into the most nitty-gritty of what direct action organizing is like in the next videos, but let's leave with this important lesson. As an organizer, you'll repeatedly have to deal with the question of whether to focus on direct service work or not. In this series of videos, we will be focusing on organizations that do not combine direct service with direct action. There are 3 reasons for this. First, a lot of direct service is care work, which is critically important. Some care work can be simple, but other care work requires professionals with proper training to prevent further harm. And unless you're organizing skilled professionals, which happened in many of the Occupy Wall Street movements across the United States, you may be doing more harm than good when trying to provide direct service. Also, this series is meant to be general. Each type of direct service will be very specific to the issue you're working on and the location you're in. So by all means, if you care about doing direct service, organize to do direct service. That's just not what the topic of this series is. Second, funding for these services often comes from government bodies or large nonprofits, who direct action groups are often trying to pressure. If these 2 things are combined in one organization, it opens the way for conflicts of interest, where government bodies or the powerful can threaten to cut funds, or where because of that, members might de-radicalize their calls for change. And third, inevitably, in an organization that does both direct service and direct action, a split will develop between those who see the service as most important and those who see the action as most important. Both are important, but they're oil and water. Next time, we're going to talk about the 3 principles of direct action and a tactical guide to power. See you then.